Fried flounder is on the menu today in the kitchen of the Imperial Palace of Marihalk. A low-ranking cook named Lisa Kruger is pleased that preparations are almost complete. She can't bring herself to simply fry such high-quality fish. She thinks that the cuisine in the Marihalk Empire is so simple that one could die of boredom. Lisa believes that palace cuisine should be refined and rich in flavor. But in this country, even the presentation of food is poor and tasteless. Local cooking methods are limited to grilling, steaming, or deep frying. The girl thinks there should be a limit to how tasteless food can be. She can't believe that there is a country where food isn't even seasoned with salt. Lisa thought that such a delicious flounder could simply be fried in butter, and if you add the aroma of lemon and herbs, it could make the dish divine. However, her opinion didn't matter, given her situation. After all, she's just a simple kitchen worker. She fears that for any mistake she could be sentenced to death. At these thoughts, she shudders and drops the precious plate. She decides for herself that if she stands out, a disaster will occur. Suddenly, another maid runs into the kitchen with important news. Lisa asks her friend Marika what happened. Marika reports that the chef has put her in charge of today's dish for the nights. Liza doesn't understand why the chef chose her, and Marika reminds her of a recent party with the kitchen staff. Marika says the pasta Lisa brought to the party was delicious. She whispers that the sous chef has run away because they say she poisoned the knights. Lisa, horrified, asks again how food poisoning could have happened. Marika explains that the sous chef served the knights egg sandwiches in the heat, after which they all collapsed. Having understood the situation, Lisa says that she now knows what dish she will cook. She takes the frying pan and asks Marika for one favor. Lisa asks with a smile to bring her yesterday's eggs. Marika is surprised and asks why she separates the yolks from the whites, since the knights were poisoned by the eggs. Lisa asks her to just wait and begins whisking the egg whites. Marika is amazed, because the whipped whites have become like cream. Then, Lisa carefully mixes the yolks with flour and lets the dough rest for a bit. She says with a confident smile that Marika will be surprised when she tries the dish. Lisa presents ready-made fluffy pancakes, decorated with berries and cream. Marika says sheepishly that the pancakes look like little clouds. Lisa invites her to try them with today's soup. Marika takes a spoonful of soup, and her eyes widen in surprise. She feels the tender, warm pancakes melt in her mouth, and the sharp pain in her stomach suddenly goes away. Lisa explains that she decided to cook something gentle on the stomach, since everyone suffers from food poisoning. A shocked Marika hugs Lisa and says that she should become a sous chef. Lisa smiles happily and replies that it is enough for her just to see people enjoying her food. Marika says that if only Genogarth's ruler were someone like Lisa. Lisa shudders at her words, but Marika calms her down, saying that there is no one around now. She adds regretfully how sad it is that a nation of gourmets was destroyed like this. According to her, the last king was too greedy and broke the peace treaty to seize even more land. Because of this, even the good people of Genogarth were forced to hide their identities. The friends discuss how the knights are still searching for the crown prince and the young princess, and wonder where they might be hiding. Lisa offers to serve the food before it gets cold, and Marika agrees to help her. But Lisa stops her friend, saying that she is busy taking inventory and she will go alone. Marika looks after her with concern and calls her name. Lisa is pushing a cart through the garden, enjoying the good weather. Suddenly, she remembers who she is and decides she must remain vigilant. The truth is that she is the princess of the defeated kingdom of Genogart, Alina Gesendar. She managed to hide her identity and survive, because Genogarth's fall was not the first time. This happened again and again, and each time they tried to sell it to the empire. She ran away, but each time the second prince of the empire, Maximilian, found her. Every time he killed her, time was rewound. After countless reincarnations, she finally realized that she could not prevent the destruction of her country. So in this life, she pretended to be a refugee, passed herself off as Marika's cousin, and slipped into the palace. She thinks that no one would ever suspect that the princess is in the heart of the empire, where no one knows her by sight. Now the betrayal of her family and the pursuits are behind her, and she has decided to live this life peacefully, making her way through cooking. Hearing a sound, she cautiously peers out from behind the tree. She sees a small child squatting and looking at some plant. The girl wonders what this child is doing here all alone. Suddenly, the boy brings the plant to his mouth and tries to eat it. She runs up to him and shouts that he can't eat anything because he could get seriously hurt. Lisa looks at the boy with surprised golden eyes. He says he doesn't care because he's just hungry and asks who she is. He has disheveled hair, tattered clothes, and a thin body. She thinks he doesn't look like someone who belongs in the palace and wonders whose child he is. The boy rudely asks why she is staring at him like that. Lisa apologizes with a smile and asks if she scared him. He tells her to get lost and tries to eat the plant again, but she stops him again. She explains that if he eats it, he might get headaches or indigestion. The boy blushes and shouts that he will not die from this and tells her to mind her own business. Lisa gently suggests that he try something really tasty instead. The child asks again with surprise about the tasty thing. He greedily pounces on the soup and bread she gave him. Having eaten his fill, he falls contentedly onto the grass and stretches. She asks him with a smile if he liked it. The boy thanks her for the food and apologizes for yelling. The boy lies on her lap and says that this is the most delicious bread he has ever eaten. He adds that he usually only eats hard, blue bread, which surprises Lisa. The boy takes out a piece of moldy bread and offers her to look at it. She asks in horror who gave him something like that, but he replies that he always eats it like that. Every time he eats this bread, his stomach hurts, but he has nothing else to eat. Lisa looks at the boy with sympathy, wondering what kind of parent would give their child only this. She asks where his parents are and where he lives. The boy points to a large old building, saying that it is his home. Lisa recognizes the building as an abandoned warehouse and tells the boy about it, but he angrily denies her words. She understands that the child lives all alone in this huge palace, and no one cares about him. The girl worriedly wonders why he lives here in such a state. She asks if there is anyone who can take care of him, but he stubbornly replies that he doesn't need anyone. Then Lisa invites him to meet here again tomorrow. The boy asks again in surprise, and she happily confirms her proposal. She introduces herself as Lisa and says that she works as a cook in the kitchen of the imperial palace. Suddenly, she remembers that the knights are already asking if the food is ready. She says goodbye hurriedly, promising to leave early today. As she leaves, she waves to him and shouts that they will see each other tomorrow. The boy looks after her and thinks that she is a strange lady who didn't even ask his name. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Marika is shouting excitedly that Lisa did it. Marika happily recounts that the knights were delighted with the food and finally realized how talented Lisa is. She adds that the captain wants Lisa to continue cooking for them, but she is thinking about becoming a deputy chef. Marika asks with concern if Lisa doesn't need this position. Lisa explains that she decided to prepare breakfast for the kitchen staff in advance, rather than practice for the next meal. Marika agrees that this is a good idea, and the friends smile at each other. Her friend notices that there is a lot of food, but Lisa just smiles. She replies that she will eat the leftovers herself, since she cooked more thinking about that boy. She remembers that no matter how much she cooks, it will never be enough for him. Marika playfully winks and reminds that Lisa plans to treat the captain to a cup as well. Lisa shyly denies it, but their conversation is interrupted by a woman approaching from behind. The woman stumbles, dropping vegetables, and screams loudly. It turns out to be Trudy, who tells Lisa that she feels so good because she is going to take her place. Trudy, the sous chef of the Imperial Palace kitchen, angrily advises Lisa not to forget her place. She asks if she's offended and tells her not to be so confident just because she was praised. Trudy tells her not to get carried away because she covered for her for one day, because she couldn't handle it on her own. Trudy angrily shouts that she didn't run away, but was simply following the chef's orders. Lisa doubtfully thinks what kind of order this could be from the chef. Trudy states that the job of a sous chef is much more difficult than they can imagine. She says they don't need to know the details because they won't understand anyway. Suddenly, the chef appears and asks Trudy what job she supposedly asked her for. The chef yells at Trudy, accusing her of running away because she was afraid of responsibility. And now she's lying. Trudy apologizes to the chef and accuses Lisa of stealing her job, but the chef counters that Lisa was just cleaning up the mess. As punishment, the chef orders Trudy to wash dishes for a whole week. Marika is glad that Trudy got what she deserved, because she was constantly bullying Lisa. Lisa thanks Marika for her help and feels relieved after the problem is resolved. She enthusiastically suggests putting the finishing touches on the cooking. The next day, the boy shows Lisa his clean hands and demands food, as she ordered. This is the second day that she has been bringing food to this strange boy. She checks his hands and says with a smile that he passed the test. Lisa decided to discipline the child a little and strictly tells him to come only with washed hands from now on. The boy happily agrees and impatiently tugs at her apron, anticipating the food. Today, there is pumpkin soup on the menu, and the boy is amazed by its beautiful color. She explains that the soup will taste even better if eaten with bread. Lisa teaches him to first dip the bread into the soup and then take a big bite. The boy is delighted with the soft and sweet taste of the pumpkin, and the bread simply melts in his mouth. She's glad he liked it, because it wasn't for nothing that she used so much milk. Having eaten everything down to the last spoon, he holds out his empty plate and asks for another helping. Finally full, the boy says that everything was wonderful. Then she suggests that he learn to say thank you for food, but he doesn't understand why this is necessary. She explains that these words will make him feel good and make the person who prepared the food happy. The boy realizes that she made the soup and asks if his gratitude will make her happy. She replies with a smile that nothing makes her happier than when people like her food. The boy blushes in embarrassment and quietly thanks her for the food, calling her lady. She asks why he calls her lady, and he explains that he simply doesn't know her name. Lisa remembers that she hasn't introduced herself yet, but at the same time another thought is bothering her. She thinks that this boy looks exactly like him. She remembers the man who killed her in her past life, the second prince of Marhalk named Maximilian. It is said that as a child, he was enraged by bullying in the palace and mercilessly wielded his sword to gain the emperor's recognition. Returning to reality, she decides to ask the boy what his name is. He replies that his name is Richard, and in turn asks her name. She introduces herself as Lisa Kruger, mentally explaining that she has taken Marika's last name and is pretending to be her cousin. However, feeling that it was worth being honest with this boy, she says that her name is actually Alina. She asks him not to tell this name to anyone and to call her Lisa in front of others. He asks why, and she explains that if others find out her real name, she won't be able to stay here any longer. This means that she will no longer be able to cook delicious food for him. Richard blushes and realizes that there is food from Lisa, but not from Alina. He agrees to call her Lisa so that they can continue to see each other. She asks if he understands her, and he nods to confirm that he does. He is adamant that he will do it if it means he can continue to see Lisa. Later that night, the boy sits alone in the dark and asks why she didn't keep her promise. Trudy yells at Lisa for disrupting the workflow and being completely incompetent. Lisa apologizes to Trudy for not finishing the preparations she asked for. Trudy angrily asks if Lisa thinks she's the only one here who's busy. She tells Lisa that she is not the only one working here, although this is only her second day in the kitchen. Trudy orders her to stop making excuses and go get 2 sacks of potatoes. Lisa thinks sadly that it seems like she is completely hated here. While carrying a heavy bag, she drops several potatoes. She recalls how happy she was that the chef recognized her and let her into the kitchen. But she didn't know that there would be so many people here, and it would be so hard. Especially Trudy, who seems to just hate her. She doesn't know what to do because she made a promise to meet him, but she can't do it. She anxiously hopes that he hasn't been waiting for her all this time. She decides that she will definitely go, no matter what happens, because she promised to feed him. Marika suddenly appears and says that she came because she was worried. Marika says that this Trudy is deliberately dumping all the work on her. Lisa replies with a smile that work in the kitchen is always a lot and hard, and she is sure that she will soon get used to it. Marika takes the bag and says that she can no longer stand aside and will talk to the chef herself. She reminds that Lisa will still have to carry another bag. They carry the bags together, and Lisa is glad that, frankly, she wouldn't have had the confidence to go up and down twice. She feels unwell and thinks that perhaps Marika was right, and she really does have a cold. Lisa thinks that she can't rest yet. Even though she still has much to do, she loses consciousness and falls down the stairs. She wakes up in bed with a cold compress on her forehead. Lisa is surprised to realize that she is in her room. She sits up in bed and worries that she has caused everyone trouble by losing consciousness. Suddenly, she hears someone calling her name and can't figure out if she misheard it. A small, plump bird flies into her window and complains that it is hungry. Lisa watches in shock as the bird demands food and can't believe it's talking. She jumps out of bed and grabs the bird in her hands. The girl can't believe that the bird can talk, especially when she herself is in such a serious condition. She looks at the bird and suddenly remembers something. Lisa notices the bird has yellow eyes and silver feathers and suggests that it might be Richard. The bird flies out of her hands and she screams in terror for it to come back. The bird says that he wanted to see her and was worried when she didn't come. Running out into the street, she sees Richard and realizes that it was him. He says with displeasure that she is talking nonsense and asks how she got here. She runs up to him and asks what happened and how he got here at such a late hour. Lisa is worried that someone bad might have noticed him. She suggests adding to their list of promises the rule of not going outside at night. Richard asks why he should do this if she herself does not keep her promises. Richard's clenched fist betrays the seething anger at the long wait. The girl bitterly apologizes to Richard, justifying her lateness by the commotion in the kitchen. A burning shame does not allow Lisa to even look up at the angry guy. The young man proposes a deal, demanding an even more delicious treat next time as an apology. A huge relief is reflected on the heroine's face, grateful to the guy for his forgiveness. Lisa happily promises to cook something even more delicious, but their conversation is interrupted by a familiar. The young man tries to hide his embarrassment by scolding his bird harshly and pretending to still be angry. The heroine is confused by the guy's strange behavior, and the girl tries to ask her question. The familiar's ability to speak and Richard's natural reaction make Lisa suspicious. The girl decides not to focus on the oddities, rejoicing in their reconciliation and obvious closeness. The heroine reminds the young man that it is late, gently hinting that it is time for him to go home. The young man, with feigned indifference, declares his intention to leave, concealing the true reason for his visit. The long walk Richard took to the servants' quarters speaks volumes about his feelings. The girl sternly, but caringly, warns the guy about the consequences if he breaks his promise again. Lisa's caring gesture of wrapping Richard in a blanket against the night chill fills the scene with warmth. The girl thanks the young man for his visit, saying goodbye with the hope of seeing him again soon. The coming midday of the next day promises a new meeting. The heroine sits alone on a bench, suddenly realizing that their meeting does not have an appointed time. A friend shares the good news that her boss has given her permission to leave early, giving Lisa a chance to meet. An early release seems pointless without the opportunity to see Richard, for whom the heroine has already prepared a treat. A sudden thought dawns on Lisa, prompting the girl to go straight to Richard's house. The path to the guy's home turns out to be gloomy and abandoned, causing anxiety in the heroine. The horrific ruins that appeared before Lisa were completely unlike a place to live. The strange location of Richard's house between the royal residences raises even more questions for the girl. The illogicality and suspiciousness of this place make the heroine very wary. Lisa decides to act cautiously, making her way to the building and hiding from prying eyes. The unexpected appearance of a stranger behind her takes Lisa by surprise, making her blood run cold. The cold steel of the sword at her throat leaves the heroine no chance of escape or justification. The threatening tone of the female knight leaves no doubt about the seriousness of her intentions. A direct question about the purpose of the penetration puts Lisa in a hopeless situation. A simple desire to see Richard turned into mortal danger for the girl. Lisa understands that in front of her is not just a guard, but someone of high rank. The marshal's uniform epaulets confirm the heroine's suspicions about the stranger's high status. The girl decides to smooth things over, realizing that any mistake could be fatal. Lisa introduces herself as a cook, hoping that her low status will help avoid suspicion. The female knight's attention switches to the basket in Lisa's hands. The question about the contents of the basket sounds like an accusation, increasing the heroine's fear. Lisa tries to justify herself, but her trembling voice betrays her nervousness. The night woman's patience runs out. Her gaze becomes icy and demanding. In a panic, the girl blurts out the truth about the sandwiches for her friend, arousing even more suspicion. The contemptuous mention of the brat reveals the night woman's deep dislike for Lisa's friend. The forbidden status of the territory, which only a select few may enter by the will of the emperor, shrouds Richard's identity in mystery. The warrior's abrupt gesture as she takes away the basket transforms the innocent treat into a weapon of the alleged crime. The strict demand to tell everything about Richard puts Lisa in a dead end, where any word could be fatal. The cold-blooded correction of Richard's age to 14 proves the knight's deep knowledge. Lisa's complete ignorance of her friend's true age only strengthens the warrior's suspicions. The inconsistencies in the girl's story force the knight to take decisive action to establish the truth. The unique ability to detect poison by taste becomes the final argument in this intense test. The divine taste of a simple peanut butter and banana sandwich completely overwhelms the stern warrior. The perfect combination of sweetness and tenderness creates a culinary masterpiece that can melt even the most icy heart. The silent scene, full of the night's surprise, gives Lisa a fragile hope for a successful outcome. A little culinary secret involving the addition of cream reveals the true nature of Lisa's talent. The slight blush on the warrior's cheeks betrays her embarrassment and awareness of her own mistake. The knight's sudden, impulsive gesture of grabbing Lisa by the hands blurs the line between interrogation and something personal. The memory of Richard's enthusiastic stories about the delightful Lisa finally puts everything in its place. Lilith Carmelian von Kolviter realizes that standing before her is the very girl who won the boy's trust. As she leaves, the princess thanks Lisa for the wonderful snack, leaving the girl completely perplexed. The revelation of the identity of Lilith, the head of the most powerful knightly order, and a candidate for the throne, leaves Lisa in shock. The mysterious connection between the princess and Richard raises even more disturbing questions for the heroine. The unexpected appearance of Richard himself behind Lisa promises long-awaited answers to all her questions. Richard's innocent question about the reason for the visit conceals a childish hope for a kept promise. Anxious anticipation gives way to the sincere joy of the girl who managed to fulfill her promise on time. The sincere pleasure on the young man's face becomes the best reward for all her experiences for Lisa. The mysterious status of the guy living in the forbidden territory and knowing the princess haunts the heroine. The familiar name Richard gives rise to vague, disturbing memories in Lisa's soul. A terrifying thought strikes the girl's mind, as Richard is strikingly similar to Maximilian, the killer from the past. A gap in her memory of the second prince's appearance from her past life makes the heroine doubt her conclusions. A young man's simple request for more becomes for the girl an agonizing choice between compassion and the desire to escape the pain of the past. The story of meeting the princess becomes a test for Lisa to see how the mysterious guy reacts. The direct question about Marhalk's belonging to the imperial family hangs in the air, full of tension. The young man's disparaging response, full of contempt for his own status, only strengthens Lisa's suspicions. Richard's cryptic answer further confuses the heroine, hiding the bitter truth behind a screen of childish logic. A sudden memory of the magical abilities of the imperial family of Marhalk becomes the key to the mystery. The Empire's incredible strength, based on unique magic, explains their boundless power. The image of a mighty prince standing over his fallen enemies demonstrates the cruel price of this power. Richard's unexpected touch releases a stream of healing magic, enveloping Lisa in a glow. The feeling of healing mixes with shock, causing the girl to look at her companion in a new way. The admission of his own powerlessness, despite belonging to a great family, reveals the young man's deep wound. The mysterious decision to keep one's magical power here hints at a dangerous plan or forced confinement. Lisa's gentle retort, seeing the young man not as a magical artifact, but as a child in need of care, promises to be the beginning of his healing. Lisa's unusual kindness confuses Richard, causing the young man to doubt the cruel laws of the world. The youth's cruel philosophy, where weakness is equated with sin and only the worthy survive, sounds like a death sentence. The young man's cold words about the survival of the fittest echo in the oppressive silence of the ruined house. A terrifying guess about Marihalka's inhuman philosophy pierces the heroine's consciousness, explaining all the cruelty of this world. Lisa's internal protest against this worldview bursts out, denying the right of such injustice to exist. A desperate attempt to reach the boy forces Lisa to reveal her greatest vulnerability, her lack of magic. The painful memories of begging for life in exchange for slave labor in the kitchen come alive with renewed vigor. Ghosts of the past, where the girl was abandoned and betrayed, remind her of an endless cycle of humiliation. A series of painful deaths from past lives gives Lisa the right to speak with the young man as an equal, understanding his pain. The tender care in Lisa's voice promises Richard what the boy was deprived of, the right to be the only one and loved. A gentle touch on the young man's cheeks reinforces Lisa's words about his main value, which makes Richard special in her eyes. A sincere, almost forgotten smile lights up the young man's face, melting the ice in his soul for the first time in a long time. A quiet promise to never say sad things again is the first step to healing a wounded heart. The boy's touching affection for the kind girl emphasizes their shared alienation from this cruel world. A strong embrace gives both a sense of security, uniting two solitudes into a fragile but warm union. A firm intention to protect the young man from the suffering that Lisa herself experienced becomes the girl's main goal. The ominous silence of the kitchen is interrupted by the appearance of a huge mountain of raw potatoes. A huge mountain of potatoes, appearing out of nowhere, becomes an ominous omen of impending troubles for Lisa. A simple task of peeling potatoes turns into an elaborate attempt to prevent a meeting with Richard. The insidious plan of an unknown enemy becomes obvious, turning ordinary kitchen work into real torture. Marika's anxious look betrays genuine concern for her friend's depressed state. Marika's indignation grows at the sight of the overwhelming task that Trudy has placed on Lisa's shoulders alone. The incredible amount of potatoes for ordinary mashed potatoes only increases her friend's suspicions of Trudy's malicious intent. The simplicity of the mashed potato recipe contrasts sharply with the enormous amount of time it takes to prepare. The realization of the scale of the job plunges Lisa into despair, as the cleaning alone will take forever. The bitterness of not being able to keep her promise fills the heart of the heroine, who represents the lonely, waiting Richard. The daring idea of cooking potatoes right in their skins comes to Lisa's mind as the only chance to make it in time. A tricky question about the importance of the upcoming dinner becomes the first step in the implementation of Lisa's bold plan. An ordinary nightly dinner, rather than a banquet, frees Lisa's hands for culinary experiments. The desire to keep the promise made to Richard ignites a fire of determination in the girl's soul and inspires her to undertake a culinary adventure. The untouchable food on the Emperor's table testifies to his failing health and loss of zest for life. The Emperor's deteriorating condition and his anxiety for the future of the Empire create an atmosphere of impending crisis. The Emperor's stern order to choose the strongest successor recalls the cruel laws of survival in Marihalka. Marika's appearance with a box of mysterious things with a round bottom adds a touch of intrigue to Lisa's preparations. Marika's doubts about the possibility of making something special from ordinary potatoes clash with Lisa's confidence. The choice of champagne as the key ingredient completely baffles Marika, but the fire of a brilliant idea burns in Lisa's eyes. The fully cooked potatoes become the canvas for Lisa's future culinary masterpiece. The unconventional method of squeezing potatoes through the neck of a bottle leaves Marika in shock. Despite Marika's doubts, Lisa's unwavering confidence in success compels her friend to trust her and continue the adventure. The wicked glint in Lisa's eyes reveals her true intention: to conquer the hated Trudy's stomach and prove her superiority. Trudy listens with disbelief to Lisa's suggestion to change the dinner menu. She complains that although making puree takes a lot of time, it is a tried and tested option. Considering the ravenous appetite of the knights returning from the campaign, they will eat everything with lightning speed. An irritated Trudy demands to see the dish Lisa is going to serve instead of mashed potatoes. Lisa presents her dish with confidence, promising that it is as tender as mashed potatoes. Under the lid is smashed potatoes, crispy like French fries, served with sauce. The girl calmly explains a simple recipe in which potatoes are boiled in their skins, lightly mashed, and baked. Trudy looks at the dish with disbelief, suspecting that it is simply a way to avoid peeling potatoes. Despite Lisa's entreaties, Trudy raises her fork to her mouth with obvious hesitation. The incredible combination of a crispy crust on the outside and a tender, fluffy crumb on the inside amazes Trudy. The refreshing yogurt sauce complements the dish perfectly, adding a clean and vibrant flavor. Admitting defeat, Trudy approves of the dinner dish and orders the remaining potatoes to be boiled with the skins on. She has difficulty admitting that Lisa is right, emphasizing how rare it is to hear praise from her. Envy and irritation eat Trudy up inside, because this upstart turned out to be right again. Inspired by her success, Lisa quickly packs her basket of food, glad that she managed to leave the kitchen early. As she approaches the meeting place, she suddenly hears an unfamiliar, furious voice ordering someone to leave. Lisa runs up and sees Richard sitting on the ground, pressing his hand to his forehead in pain. The frightened young man looks up in surprise, not believing that Lisa has actually come. The girl sits down next to him, trying to understand what happened and who could have offended him. Suddenly, she notices blood on his hand and realizes that everything is much more serious than it seems. Richard tries to hide the true reason for his condition, assuring Lisa that everything is fine. Anger and helplessness overwhelm the girl at the thought of who could have hurt the defenseless boy. The only suspect in the cruelty is the princess, the only person Richard knows nearby. The direct question of the princess's involvement hangs in the air, full of fear and anticipation of the worst. Lisa gently but persistently tries to get to the truth, not believing that what happened was an accident. Richard vehemently denies the princess's guilt, calling her a kind person, which only increases Lisa's suspicions. The girl decides to back off, realizing that pressure will only make the boy withdraw into himself. Lisa's genuine sympathy makes her apologize for her persistence, explaining it as concern for him. Richard bitterly admits that the cause of his suffering lies in his own weakness. He calls himself a useless burden, repeating the cruel words he's probably heard his entire life. The boy explains that this is his punishment for disgracing the name of Marehulk and asks him not to be sad. Lisa is filled with indignation at how cruelly he is being treated, and she can't stand it anymore. She says with tears in her eyes that he is the dearest friend she has and does not deserve to be treated like this. The girl asks him to convey her words to the offender next time. She tells him to say that he is better than anyone can ever be. Confused but happy, Richard admits that he doesn't even know what this is supposed to mean. Lisa explains that happiness is eating something tasty when you haven't eaten your fill. She tells him that if anyone looks down on him, he should definitely tell her about it. Richard promises to do so, and Lisa breathes a sigh of relief. Lisa still doesn't know who bullied Richard, but she is determined to protect him. The awkward silence is broken by a question from Richard, who clearly did not expect that Lilith had eavesdropped on his conversation with Lisa. The princess tries to justify her curiosity, but her words about the evil image sound like an attempt to test the boy's reaction. Richard sheepishly admits that Lilith can be a little scary, but clearly doesn't think she's evil. Lilith, taking advantage of the moment, demands from Richard one of the sandwiches prepared by Lisa. The boy instinctively defends his food, but the princess offers him a deal, promising to heal his bruise. Richard reluctantly agrees, but his eyes show distrust of a man with a terrible character. He bitterly admits that even when he is beaten, it does not hurt, but next time he will not just stand and take it. Lilith realizes that Lisa knows nothing about Richard's true identity and his situation. She decides to use the upcoming banquet to reveal her cards and invites Richard, reminding him of his right to be present. She's hinting that he has a right to more than just being that person. Lilith challenges Richard to prove to everyone that he is worthy of more than just being an heir. As she leaves him alone with thoughts about the upcoming choice that could change his destiny. Lisa regretfully recalls that she was never able to treat Richard's wound and decides to take some medicine with her next time. Marika's sudden appearance in the kitchen interrupts her thoughts. Marika brought the knights with her, who, after trying Lisa's dish, wanted to meet the chef personally. Lisa introduces herself shyly, happy that her culinary talents have been appreciated. The knights are surprised to recognize her as the very same chef whose dish had so impressed them. Caden of the Blue Lion Knights expresses his admiration, thanking Liz for the wonderful dinner. He enthusiastically describes the incredible taste of the potato dish, crispy on the outside and soft on the inside. Caden suggests that it was precisely this dish that made their expedition today such a success. The news of a lead in the search for the royal family of Genegart plunges Lisa into icy horror. Finding the key to solving the royal family's mystery means her own life hangs in the balance. The mention of the Stele of Judgment makes Lisa's heart skip a beat in anticipation of impending disaster. Marika confirms that this is an ancient artifact used to determine the heirs of the royal family. Originally a sacred ritual of testing the purity of blood, it became a hunting tool. After the fall of Genogarth, the Stele's use changed, turning it into a deadly weapon. The magical stone, glowing scarlet in the hands of a member of the royal family, has now become a brand that condemns to death. A sacred artifact created to protect the race has become an instrument of its complete extermination. A terrifying memory of a similar Stele from childhood makes Lisa realize that the test could happen at any moment. Concerned by Lisa's pallor, Caden interrupts his story, involuntarily bringing her back to the harsh reality. Marika leads the knights away, leaving Lisa alone with her fears and dark forebodings. Lisa tries to calm herself by denying her belonging to the royal family, but fear has already settled in her soul. She reminds herself that she must survive here, no matter the cost, clinging to a fragile hope. Her simple survival plan of keeping her secret and avoiding the second prince seems almost impossible. The girl bitterly realizes that even such a simple task turned out to be too difficult for her. The fragile plan for a peaceful life, built on camouflage, threatens to collapse at any moment. The thought of quickly escaping from this place becomes more and more obsessive, because the revelation of her secret is tantamount to death. Fear for her own life is mixed with concern for Richard's fate if she disappears. She fears that without her care, the boy will stop eating normally again and return to his lonely existence. Richard's sudden, commanding order to eat, heard from behind her, makes Lisa flinch in surprise. The stranger's arrogant tone betrays his contempt for Richard, whom he considers unworthy even of food. Richard defiantly rejects the handout, demonstrating pride and unwillingness to accept anything from the offender. The stranger's feigned concern conceals a subtle mockery, and evil lights dance in his eyes. The violent scene unfolds before Lisa's eyes as the stranger roughly grabs Richard, ignoring his screams. An unexpected blow to the head with a peach interrupts the bullying, causing the offender to freeze in surprise. The angry look thrown in Lisa's direction leaves no doubt as to who dared to challenge him. Lisa realizes with horror that she has intervened in a conflict that could cost her life. She boldly demands that the stranger move away from the boy, her voice sounding unexpectedly firm and confident. The offender's high status is obvious, but Lisa is not going to back down in defense of her friend. The girl directly accuses him of inappropriate behavior, threatening to call for help if he does not stop. The stranger accepts the challenge with a contemptuous grin, throwing Richard aside as if he were an unnecessary thing. He grabs Lisa by the hair, revealing his identity as the first prince of Merhalk, Lucian. The prince angrily declares that Richard is worthless trash, unworthy of her protection. Suddenly, Lisa remembers the man who fed Richard rotten bread, and everything falls into place. She angrily demands that he not look down on the boy, protecting his dignity. Lucian mockingly asks the name of this non-entity, preparing to deliver the decisive blow. Lisa pronounces Richard's full name, Maximilian Richard von Kolvetter, and this name changes everything. She remembers that Maximilian is the second prince of Merhalk, the one she tried so hard to avoid. The image of a brutal killer from a past life merges with the image of a small, defenseless boy. Lucian realizes that Lisa knew the truth all along, and this simple servant is not as simple as she seems. The realization that the person standing before her is the second prince, a murderer from the past, plunges Lisa into a state of shock. Lucian dismisses all titles with disdain, declaring that no one would dare contradict him. His words about raising his younger brother sound like a threat, and Lisa realizes that her intervention was a mistake. The prince orders her to get out, but Lisa, ignoring the danger, takes a bold step forward. She declares that the only one who should leave this place is the prince himself, which enrages him. Lucian's sudden sneezing fit interrupts his angry tirade, creating an awkward pause. Lisa, taking advantage of the moment, makes a bold assumption about the prince's allergy to peaches. She recalls that on her first day of training, she studied the eating habits of key figures in the palace. Lisa can't believe that the child abuser turns out to be a prince. She hastily advises him to see a doctor, trying to hide her fear and buy time. The prince's growing cough and his hateful threats make Lisa realize she has crossed the line. The horror of realizing that she has harmed a member of the imperial family paralyzes her will. Richard, having come to his senses, asks with concern if she is okay, not understanding the seriousness of the situation. Lisa is desperately thinking about what to do, because in front of her is the one she wanted to avoid more than anything in the world. She decides that's enough for now and prepares for the worst. Lilith's unexpected appearance interrupts the tense scene, causing everyone to freeze. With an ironic smile, she suggests that all three of them talk in a more relaxed atmosphere. In the luxurious living room, the princess curiously asks Lisa what it was like to become friends with His Highness. Lisa realizes that Lilith heard everything, and her heart stops in anticipation of the denouement. Lilith admits that she wanted to intervene, but Lisa handled things so well on her own that Lucian is now going through hard times. Lilith tries to defuse the situation, but there are notes of sympathy for Lisa in her voice. The princess advises listening to Richard before jumping to conclusions, hinting at hidden circumstances. Richard's unexpected appearance interrupts their conversation, and Lisa freezes in anticipation. The boy, dressed in a luxurious suit, appears before her in his true form, the second prince of the empire. Richard shyly asks Lilith not to make a noise, his cheeks flushing. The princess invites Lisa to evaluate Richard's new look, but she cannot utter a word. Lilith remarks ironically that the lady doesn't seem to be thrilled, which confuses the boy even more. Lisa is confused and trying to find the words, not knowing how to react to this transformation. She forces herself to say that he looks very handsome, but there is confusion in her voice. Lilith mockingly asks Richard what he is going to do, since his new image did not make the desired impression. Richard reminds Lisa of her own words from earlier, and his voice sounds reproachful. He explains that he hid his identity because he considered himself incompetent and unworthy. He wanted to appear before her in a dignified image, when he could raise his head with pride. Lilith reveals that Richard has recently begun asking about methods of studying magic. She adds that he even fought back against Lucian, which is completely natural for him. The appearance of a maid interrupts their conversation, reminding the princess of urgent matters. Lisa still can't believe that the boy she became friends with is the same man who killed her in her past life. Richard, sensing her confusion, tries to explain why he remained silent about his origins. He asks anxiously if she hates him for deceiving her. Lisa admits that she was surprised, but did not expect that her suspicions would turn out to be true. Lisa searches for hidden meaning in Richard's silence, suspecting that it is not only about his status. She asks him point-blank if he trusts her, and the question takes him by surprise. Richard vehemently denies her assumption, but his confusion speaks volumes. He admits that he was scared and afraid of disappointing her, not wanting to feel even more pathetic. The boy sadly adds that he is sorry that he had to deceive her. Suddenly, Lisa says that if that's the case, she's still disappointed, and his face contorts in pain. She adds with a tender smile that she is not disappointed in him, and that changes everything. Lisa understands that their current relationship can change the future and correct the mistakes of the past. Richard, touched by her words, hugs her, thanking her for her understanding and acceptance. He happily promises that from now on, he will not hide anything from her. Richard thanks her for listening to him, and they say goodbye until the next time they meet. He excitedly reminds her that she will prepare a special dish for him for lunch tomorrow. Lisa waves him goodbye with a warm smile, happy that everything turned out so well. The unexpected appearance of the princess makes Lisa shudder in surprise. Lilith admits with an ironic smile that she was curious how they would figure it all out. She remarks that they seem to have made up, and Lisa sheepishly agrees. The princess asks Lisa for a favor, and her tone becomes serious. She asks if Lisa has heard of the Imperial Academy Manhwa. Lilith explains that all members of the royal family are required to attend this academy from the age of 12. With a determined look, she declares that she wants to send Richard there. Lisa listens to the princess's proposal with bewilderment, not understanding how she can influence Richard's decision. Lilith explains that every member of the royal family has a guardian animal, and Richard is no exception. She points to Richard's bird, explaining that the boy keeps it with him to control his magic. Richard believes that if he hadn't wasted his magic on unnecessary things, Lucian wouldn't have been able to beat him. Lisa assumes that Lilith wants to send him to the academy so that he can learn to handle magical power. The princess admits that she does not want to take the throne and may not become the next empress. The problem is that Lucian is the only candidate, and she doesn't want such a scumbag to become emperor. Lilith says that for the country's stability, they need at least one worthy candidate for the throne. She asks Lisa to give Richard the motivation to become more decent and worthy of the title of prince. Left alone, Lisa ponders the princess's words, realizing the complexity of the situation. She realizes that even if Richard's feelings are secondary, she will have to make a difficult decision. Marika's sudden appearance with news interrupts her painful thoughts. Marika excitedly announces that there will soon be a dinner competition in the kitchen. She explains that this is not just a competition, but an important event connected with the visit of ambassadors from Kestol. They want to make a good impression on their allies, so neither age nor status will matter in the competition. Marika enthusiastically says that only the skill and abilities of the chefs will be assessed. The first place winner will be granted one wish, which will be fulfilled by the emperor himself. She adds with admiration that the emperor will fulfill any wish in his name. Marika enthusiastically persuades Lisa to participate, saying that even Trudy is going to join. Liza understands that this is an important event, because the emperor himself, confined to his bed, has invited spectators. Marika enthusiastically encourages her friend, convincing her to prepare for the competition and believe in victory. She says goodbye until tomorrow, leaving Lisa alone with her thoughts and her emerging plan. Lisa understands that winning the competition and having her wish granted by the Emperor is her only chance. This incredible opportunity makes her heart beat faster, and a daring plan is born in her head. She decides to calm down first and carefully think through the dish that will bring her victory. Suddenly, she finds a strange letter under the door, which clearly does not belong to Marika. The contents of the letter shock her. It is a message addressed to her as Alina, Princess of Genogarth. Ominous words of revenge and great deeds come from the man who calls her little sister. Lisa understands that there is only one person who could address her like that. It is her brother, Prince Kanarik Gesendar, and the knowledge that he is alive fills her with dread. Memories of her brother's cruelty, which always frightened her, return with renewed vigor. He was a man who could commit any cruelty without the slightest hint of guilt. She clutches the letter, refusing to take part in her brother's madness, and return to the circle of death. As a child, he would cruelly punish her for the slightest offense, humiliating and mocking her. He gathered his friends to laugh at her suffering, making her life a living hell. Sometimes he even locked her in the cellar, leaving her hungry for the whole day, enjoying her torment. She thinks with horror that if she ignores this letter, those terrible days may return. The fear of her brother's possible appearance paralyzes her, and she doesn't know what to do. The joyful cries of the knights, anticipating dinner, tear her away from her dark thoughts. Lisa smiles as she introduces today's menu, a creamy, slow-cooked stew. Lisa thanks Caden for the praise, feeling that her efforts were not in vain. He enthusiastically admits that every time he eats her dishes, he is speechless with admiration. Caden notices that Lisa doesn't look very cheerful and asks worriedly if something is wrong. Lisa struggles to hide her dark thoughts about her brother, realizing that her depression is becoming noticeable. The knight suggests that her thoughtfulness is connected with the special menu for the upcoming banquet. The girl seizes on this excuse with relief, admitting that she is still thinking about the dish. One of the knights recalls the peculiar preferences of the ambassador from Kestal, giving Lisa a new idea. It turns out that the ambassador is a vegetarian with a sensitive stomach, preferring exclusively plant-based food. Lisa realizes that she won't be able to use meat in her dishes, and this becomes a real challenge for her. She sees this as a chance to try something new and earn extra points in the competition. During lunch with Richard, she decides to ask him about his favorite vegetable, hoping to find inspiration. Lisa explains that she is looking for ideas for a new dish and wipes his lips after the meal. She asks him to remember something memorable related to vegetables. Richard admits that he prefers meat and is not very fond of vegetables. The only vegetable he usually eats is potatoes, which is to be expected. Lisa sadly notes that people in Marihalka really do eat too many potatoes. Suddenly, Richard remembers one vegetable he can't stand, eggplant. Lisa explains with a smile that eggplants can be poisonous if not cooked, and that's why he has a stomachache. She suddenly realizes that eggplant is exactly what she needs and reproaches herself for forgetting about it. Lisa recalls that eggplants are not cooked very often in Marihalka, and this ingredient is difficult to handle. Lisa gratefully accepts Richard's help, glad that her idea has found a response. She decides to cook an eggplant dish and asks the boy to help her find them. Richard agrees to help, but only because it was she, Lisa, who asked him to. He insists on going together, explaining that it is dangerous to go there alone. Lisa is confused by his concern and surprised that the place where the eggplants grow could be dangerous. Richard sternly warns her that she might get lost if she goes alone, and his concern seems very sincere. She agrees to go along with a smile, touched by his concern and desire to help. Richard can hardly contain his joy as he looks forward to their adventure together. A sudden rain takes them by surprise, and Lisa worries whether they will make it back before dark. She is surprised to discover that such wonderful eggplants are hidden deep in the mountains. Lisa dreams of how delicious fresh eggplants will turn out if they are baked. She thanks Richard for finding such a wonderful place and hugs him. The embarrassed boy tries to pull away, muttering that he simply stumbled upon them while walking. She asks if what they have collected will be enough for them, and he confidently answers that it is. Lisa remarks with a smile that it will take a certain amount of courage to return here again. Richard offers his help, saying that if she needs it, she can just tell him. He takes the basket of vegetables from her, and his touching concern makes Lisa smile. She thinks this place is his secret place, and she finds it quite cute. Having collected enough eggplants, they decide to go down. Lisa hurries him, afraid that they will get soaked to the skin if they don't hurry. A downpour catches them off guard in the mountains, and Lisa looks at the wall of rain in despair. She panics when she remembers the eggplants, but Richard calms her down, saying that he managed to get them. Lisa breathes a sigh of relief, glad that their efforts were not in vain. Richard notices with concern that Lisa is shivering and asks if she is cold. She tries to hide her condition, assuring him that everything will be fine as soon as her clothes dry. Richard is worried that Lisa already had health problems and might faint again. He decides to start a fire to warm her up, hoping that his recent training has not been in vain. The failure makes him remember Lucian's words about his uselessness, and despair overcomes him again. He recalls being called a failure in the Imperial line, unable to even use his power. The thought of being helpless in the face of danger again makes him clench his fists in helplessness. Suddenly, flames burst into flames in his hands, and he looks in surprise at his awakened magic. He enthusiastically calls Lisa to the fire, proudly declaring that he will warm her. They sit by the fire, and the warmth of the fire gradually warms their wet bodies. Lisa comes to and apologizes for dozing off while it's still raining outside. She thanks Richard for staying with her and not letting her catch a cold again. He sheepishly reminds her that he warned her about the dangers of this place and asks her to stay warm. Lisa falls asleep again, and Richard looks at her tenderly, feeling a new feeling arise in his heart. He makes a promise to himself to work harder to become stronger. Richard wants to be the one who can protect her, and this thought gives him strength. He hugs her, asking her not to turn away from him, and at that moment, their destinies become even more intertwined. Richard tenderly promises to take care of Lisa so that she will only be happy. The next morning, Marika anxiously asks her friend where she was all rainy night. Lisa sheepishly tries to avoid answering, citing the long history of searching for ingredients. She tries to change the subject by asking about news in the kitchen or letters. Marika excitedly announces that she has amazing information for Lisa. It turns out that Ambassador Castola is not quite a vegetarian, as everyone thought. There are different types of vegetarianism, and the ambassador prefers dairy products. This news opens up many more options for Lisa's competition dish. She comes up with a new idea and asks Marika to keep an eye on everything while she steps away for a while. Thanking her friend, she promises to return soon, her eyes shining with inspiration. Marika notes with a smile that Lisa's eyes always light up when the conversation turns to cooking. She wonders with curiosity what Lisa will wish for if she takes first place in the competition. Lisa happily carries a basket of dairy products, looking forward to using them. Suddenly, a mysterious cloaked figure appears in her path, blocking her way. He asks her with a venomous grin if she had a good life, and his words sound like a threat. Liza recognizes him with horror as her brother, Kenuric, and her heart stops with fear. He mockingly asks why she is so surprised, since he sent her a letter. Kenuric states that Genegart will soon be revived, and to do so they need to understand Marhalk's actions. Lisa desperately asks him to stop his illusions, reminding him that Genegart has been completely destroyed. He contemptuously calls her a cowardly little sister and offers to show her the abilities of her older brother. Caden mentions the fragment of the Judgment Stele, and Lisa realizes her secret is at risk. Kenrick says with a grin that if they are not careful, the fact that she is a royal might come out. He admits that he supported her concerns, but Lisa cannot trust him. Kenrick declares that he does not intend to end this, and that Genogart will soon be reborn. He clamps his hand over her mouth roughly, not allowing her to object, and his eyes burn with a mad fire. Kenrick threatens to spread word of her existence throughout the Empire if she does not obey. He orders her to continue gathering information about the Imperial Palace, as she wants to live peacefully. After letting her go, he promises to return soon for a report, leaving her in complete confusion. Lisa is horrified to realize that he wants her to become a spy, and she hates the thought. She realizes that Kenrick will definitely return, and if she disappoints him, she will be considered a traitor. If the fact that she is the Princess of Genegarth comes to light, she will face inevitable execution. And the worst thing is that the people who were close to her will find themselves at a disadvantage. All the participants and judges gather in the hall, and Princess Lilith announces the beginning of the competition. She introduces herself as Lilith Carmelian von Kolviter, Princess of Merhalk, and takes charge of judging. Lilith announces that there will be an open competition for dishes for the dinner menu today. His Majesty's only wish is for a taste that will satisfy his honored guests. She calls on everyone to be worthy of the reputation of the great empire and prove their level of skill. The competition begins, and all the chefs get to work, determined to win. Lisa can't concentrate because she keeps thinking about Kenrick. She doesn't understand why he needed to come right before such an important competition. Lisa winces, almost dropping the precious eggplant, and her thoughts return to the competition. She pulls herself together, reminding herself that this is a chance to enjoy cooking. The thought that Richard's efforts should not be in vain gives her strength and determination. Marika breathes a sigh of relief when she sees Lisa finally starting to cook and admits that she was worried about her. Caden watches Lisa with interest, and Marika notes his close attention with jealousy. Trudy also keeps her eyes on Lisa, and her gaze does not bode well. Marika angrily tells Caden that Trudy stole Lisa's recipe by questioning the kitchen staff. Caden curiously asks what Lisa will cook this time, knowing her love for eggplant. Despite his dislike of the texture of eggplant, he looks forward to her dish. Lisa starts cooking by slicing the eggplants thinly and grilling them. She alternates layers of fried eggplant and tomato sauce, then grates cheese on top, creating a lasagna-like texture. Marika is surprised to realize that Lisa used eggplant instead of traditional sheets of dough. She looks at the finished dish with admiration, assuming that Lisa has prepared something incredible. Marika praises the appetizing appearance of the dish and hopefully asks what will happen if Lisa really wins. She says with pride that she knows how hard Lisa worked to achieve this result. The chef announces that the judging of the competition is over, and all participants freeze in anticipation. Lisa clasps her hands nervously, feeling that she is not yet mentally prepared for the announcement of the results. She's not interested in competition, but the thought that Richard helped her makes her want to win. She remembers his happy smile and realizes that she wants to win for him. The chef solemnly announces which dish the judges liked. Lisa Kruger's eggplant lasagna is declared the winner, and she can't believe her luck. Marika and the other maids happily congratulate Lisa, but their joy is interrupted by Trudy's angry shout. Trudy looks at Lisa in fury, and Marika tries to protect her friend from her attacks. Burning with envy, Trudy asks with hatred why Lisa won. She declares that she is not happy with this, and her face distorts with anger. Trudy questions the fairness of the judging, alleging bias. Marika can't stand it and stands up for Lisa, not understanding how anyone can be so angry about her victory. Trudy says with disdain that there is no point in some worthless girl winning. Marika reminds her that if she is so upset, she should have cooked something tastier. Trudy angrily shouts that her cooking cannot be worse than Lisa's, and that it is impossible. She claims that it is impossible to make anything tasty from eggplant, and demands that the results be reviewed. The other maids watch the unfolding scandal with alarm, not daring to intervene. The chef decides to make his decision by looking at Trudy's dish, which turns out to be the same mashed potatoes. Lisa is horrified to recognize it as a dish she has cooked before, and realizes that Trudy stole her recipe. Trudy defiantly asks if it matters who cooked the dish first, since she was simply following the recipe. She admits that the recipe had an influence on her, but doesn't see anything wrong with it. Trudy brazenly claims that it is her dish because she seasoned it differently than Lisa. The chef, with cool calm, asks Trudy to explain the degree of doneness of her dish. Everyone sees with horror that the potatoes are burnt and can't even be eaten. Trudy is desperate and can't understand why it didn't work out, because she wanted to cook it as well as Lisa. The chef looks at Trudy with regret, not understanding the reasons for her envy, and decides to talk to her later. She encourages Lisa, saying that this victory is the result of her own efforts. Lisa understands with a smile that the most important thing for her is the happiness of the people who have tried her food. Marika hugs her friend tightly, rejoicing at her victory, and Lisa feels that this is enough for her to be happy. Lilith praises Lisa for her talent, saying that everyone is delighted with her dish, but Lisa modestly attributes it all to luck. The princess recalls with pleasure the taste of eggplant lasagna, admiring its incredible taste even without meat. She admits that she used to think eggplants were strange and disgusting, but Lisa's dish changed her mind. The perfect combination of the acidity of the tomato sauce, the saltiness of the parmesan, and the lightness of the dish won her over. Lisa, with tears in her eyes, is happy that she will soon be able to taste this dish again, and promises to put her whole heart into preparing it. Suddenly, Lilith regretfully announces that Richard will apparently not be able to attend the banquet. She explains that she tried to invite him, but encountered insurmountable obstacles. Despite the fact that Richard is the prince of the empire, his position is very precarious. His Majesty's position is firm, and he will not allow a prince without achievements to speak on behalf of the empire. Lisa notes with alarm that Richard has not even received a proper education yet, and this seems unfair to her. Lilith reveals the bitter truth. The emperor is keeping Richard at a distance, not only because of his incompetence. The emperor loved the empress very much, and Richard, left alone, became the object of his hatred. Liza painfully realizes how sorry she is for the boy, but understands that it is not easy to influence His Majesty. After this conversation, the banquet with Kestel ended in success, leaving behind mixed feelings. The eggplant lasagna, apparently, was a hit with everyone and was received with great enthusiasm. Lisa is glad that Ambassador Kestel was also pleased, and her small victory brings her satisfaction. Lisa, like the cook who has prepared the main dish, feels nervous before meeting the emperor. She is granted an audience with His Majesty to receive her well-deserved reward. Lilith remarks ironically that the journey must have been tiring, but Lisa politely thanks her for her concern. Lisa can't believe that she will actually meet the ruler of the Merhalk Empire. The princess asks if she has already decided what she will ask for, and there is curiosity in her eyes. Lisa confidently replies that she is ready, and Lilith, with a smile, tells her to go ahead. Entering the chambers, Lisa sees the sick emperor lying in bed, and her heart sinks with sympathy. She understands that in another situation, she would have run away, not to mention attracting attention to herself. Liza introduces herself with dignity as the chef of the imperial palace, bowing her head before His Majesty. The emperor orders her to raise her head and begins to talk about the recent negotiations regarding maritime trade. He mentions that Kestal was originally a closed nation with no sea routes. The success of the banquet and the satisfied ambassador will bring even more glory and honor to the empire. The emperor invites her to express her wish, promising a reward to the one who brings good luck to the empire. Lisa has only one wish: to cook the food her heart desires and live happily. But she realizes that she is actually a princess from a defeated country, and her dream may not come true. The thought that one day she will have to leave this place haunts her. She remembers the delicious taste of eggplant and realizes that her cooking brings joy not only to herself, but to others as well. Richard asks anxiously whether the man, the ambassador from Kestel, might like this dish too much. He's afraid that if he likes the dish so much, he'll take Lisa on as his personal chef. Lisa tries to reassure him, saying that she is just a cook, but doubt begins to arise in her heart. Richard bitterly admits his powerlessness, saying that he can't do anything, even if she doesn't want to let him go. Lisa states with determination in her voice that her wish is something she truly desires with all her heart. She treats him to pancakes made from a new type of potato, but he remains silent. Lisa asks anxiously what happened, noticing his silence and thoughtfulness. He barely manages to say that he is going to the academy, and this news takes her by surprise. Lisa understands with delight that we are talking about the #1 educational institution in the empire. She is happy for him because he always wanted to study magic, and this is a great opportunity. She tries to encourage him by telling him that he will succeed, that he will study hard and make many friends. Richard admits that he learned everything from Lilith, and the reason for his trip is her request. Lisa sheepishly tries to justify herself, saying that she didn't ask the princess for anything. He says this is another reason to be happy, because his father would never have allowed him to enter the academy. Lisa reminds him that he always wanted to become stronger, and this is his chance. Richard admits that he didn't want her to give up her only opportunity to ask for anything. He thinks that because of him, she missed her desire, but she stops him. She says it's not a sacrifice, but her own choice, and she wants to support it. Lisa promises to support him in the best way she knows how. Inspired by her words, Richard promises to study hard and take first place. He asks her with a smile to look after him, and she happily agrees. She asks when he is leaving for the academy, and his answer surprises her. Richard says he has to leave right now to catch up with the new semester, and this news stuns Lisa. Richard sadly says that he won't be able to see her for some time after he leaves. He promises to return during the holidays after the first semester, asking her not to worry. They sit on the balcony, and Richard says thoughtfully that he could, for example, catch the fugitives of the royal family of Genogarth. Lisa shudders in horror, afraid that Richard will hunt her again, as in his past life. Richard notices her condition with concern and asks if she is feeling unwell. Lisa understands that she does not regret her choice for Richard, but if this continues, she will not be able to bear it. She hugs him tightly, trying to hide her anxiety and fear. Lisa says she is very glad that she met him, and these words sound like a farewell. She asks him to remember that even if their paths diverge, she will always be on his side. Lilith reproachfully reminds Richard of his promise, and he looks away in embarrassment. With a heavy backpack on his shoulders, he is ready to set off on a new journey. Lisa hands him a basket with a special lunch that she prepared especially for him. Lilith peers inside curiously, but Richard hugs the basket jealously. He decides not to eat his lunch right away, but to leave it for later in order to prolong the pleasure. Lisa panics and persuades him not to do this, as the food will spoil. He asks her to cook the first dish when they meet again. Richard says he wants to try again that pumpkin soup she made when they first met. She agrees with a smile, glad that he doesn't worry about anything. He looks forward to their new meeting and gets into the carriage. Lisa and Lilith wave him goodbye, and the carriage takes him to the academy, towards a new future. Richard, looking out the window, makes a promise to himself to work hard and put in all his efforts at the academy. He says with confidence that he can become strong enough to protect Lisa. He promises to come back a different person, and there is determination in his eyes. Several years later, in the Merhalk Empire, Lisa finishes her report. She breathes a sigh of relief when she is released, and the report is finally finished. The captain conducts an interrogation immediately upon returning, and his subordinates are unhappy about it. Suddenly, he remembers that they have finally found her, and his face lights up. He says she is the most suitable candidate they have found so far. All this is done for Merhalk, and his words sound like an oath. The captain enthusiastically gives the order to immediately prepare everything and wait for him outside. He gets nervous when it comes to her, and this doesn't escape the attention of his subordinates. He is looking forward to meeting her, and his anxiety seems strange. He looks at her portrait and says tenderly that he will finally be able to see her. In a busy market, vendors entice customers with fresh fruit. Lisa is looking for fruit for dessert and turns to the merchant for advice. He offers her freshly picked, sweet and juicy apples, and her eyes light up. She is delighted to think that such apples could be used to make a wonderful apple pie. She imagines slicing them thinly and simmering them with sugar and butter. She dreams of baking it in the oven and getting a fragrant sweet apple pie. She's thrilled at the thought of it and can't wait to start baking. The merchant gives Lisa a bag of apples, admiring her talent and eagerly awaiting her next dish. A crowd is gathered in the square near the notice board, and Lisa realizes with alarm that this is connected to her again. They've put up even more wanted posters for members of the Genogart royal family, and it doesn't bode well. Many years have passed since Genogart fell, but they still believe that someone from the royal family is alive. Lisa quickly says goodbye to the merchant, citing urgent matters, and hurries to leave. 5 years ago, after Richard left the imperial palace, she decided to leave too. She felt ashamed for breaking her promise, but she was afraid that her secret would be discovered. Now she is living her dream by cooking the dishes she loves and living in a small house. Suddenly, she notices a group of knights on the street and feels her heart stop with fear. They search for her, and one of the knights happily reports that the target has returned. Lisa finds herself terrified and surrounded by guards who order her not to even think about escaping. A grown-up Richard appears before her, and his cold gaze pierces her right through. She can hardly believe her eyes, not knowing if she could hate him. She is afraid that if during this time he realized who she really is, then the past will repeat itself. He orders her to be put into a carriage, and her worst fears begin to come true. She is taken to the imperial palace, and she thinks with horror that death awaits her again. In the carriage, Richard asks in surprise why she is sitting like a criminal. He remarks with a cold smile that much time has passed, and his voice sounds strange. He roughly grabs her by the dress, asking if she knows why he came for her. Lisa realizes with horror that he knows she is a princess, and her fate is sealed. Lisa bitterly realizes that all her attempts to escape her fate were in vain. She desperately thought that she could change the future, but the past caught up with her. Richard asks with pain in his voice why she disappeared without saying a word. He admits that he could not come to terms with her departure and waited for her for a very long time. Not having waited for her return, he decided to find her himself and now asks her to come home with him. Lisa is surprised to realize that he did not realize that she was a princess and that his feelings were sincere. He explains that he never mentioned the Genogarth lead, fearing it was fake. She tries to refuse, saying that she likes everything here and she will not be able to return to the palace. Lisa decides that it is better not to contact Richard anymore and to leave their reunion as a pleasant memory. He accepts her decision with sadness, but his look says that he will not give up. He asks permission to stay just for today, and his voice sounds hopeful. The knights return, and Richard orders them to leave, leaving him alone with Lisa. He says that this should make her not worry about anything anymore, and his concern touches her. She is confused and does not know what to do, and her heart is torn between fear and affection. He invites her to talk quietly inside, and she cannot refuse him. Richard looks around her small restaurant, which she now manages with interest. She says sheepishly that there is nothing special about it, and that only villagers come here. He tenderly replies that her restaurant is simple, warm, and cozy, just like her. He asks which of her dishes is the most popular, and his interest seems genuine. Lisa belatedly realizes that her feelings for him have not faded, but have only become stronger. Richard, standing with his back to Lisa, sadly notes how long they haven't seen each other and how much he has grown. Lisa smiles as she thinks that they don't have a fixed menu, and she can always cook whatever her guests want. She asks with interest how he has been doing all this time and why he was called captain. Lisa is surprised that he no longer attends the academy and cannot understand the reason. He proudly announces that he graduated from the academy a long time ago, having skipped several grades. Richard admits that it was difficult to study away from home, but he tried his best. He says he worked even harder, and his piercing gaze makes her heart beat faster. Lisa thought deep down that Richard had changed a lot, and she was overcome with mixed feelings. The memories of their childhood seemed so distant, and she assumed he would take a different path now. He interrupts her thoughts, asking why she suddenly became silent, and she sheepishly denies it. Lisa understands that she is truly happy, because even after so many years, his heart remains the same as it was then. Richard reminds her of his promise to make pumpkin soup when he returns. He fondly remembers wanting to try that soup again, and Lisa is surprised that he still remembers. He admits that it was this promise that kept him going and made him endure all the difficulties. Lisa says with a smile that she made it for him, and he eagerly asks when she did it. She leads him into the kitchen, saying that she first needs to check if she has all the right ingredients. Lisa feels a strange uneasiness, because for a moment, Richard seemed so sweet to her. She attributes this to the fact that they haven't seen each other for a long time, and calms down while cooking. She accidentally drops the box, and at that moment, she panics. Richard catches her, and she finds herself in his arms, feeling her heart skip a beat. Richard tenderly embraces Lisa, saying that it was dangerous, and his concern touches her deeply. He asks her anxiously if his touch is unpleasant, but she only shyly denies it. Lisa, trying to hide her embarrassment, says that she will go to the kitchen for ingredients. She invites him to take a bath to relax after the long journey, and he agrees with surprise. She leaves, asking him to take his time and relax, leaving him alone with his thoughts. Richard is amazed by her concern, because she was so close, and his heart begins to beat faster. He wonders anxiously if she heard his heartbeat, and his cheeks flush. Lisa begins making pumpkin soup by cutting a steamed pumpkin in half. She adds milk and fresh cream, simmering and mashing the vegetables until a rich, sweet aroma emerges. The creamy pumpkin soup is ready, and she fondly remembers how long it has been since she made it for him. She remembers how little Richard was when they first met, and how he forgot about table etiquette. The thought of Richard growing up makes her heart flutter, and she tries to push these feelings away. She tells herself with a smile that a lot of time has passed, and she just got carried away by memories. Suddenly, she feels someone's presence behind her and turns around in surprise. It turns out to be Richard, who has already come out of the bathroom, and his appearance takes her by surprise. He says he smells something delicious, and his closeness makes her feel embarrassed. He asks if he can try the soup, and she can't refuse him. Having tried the soup, he says with pleasure that it is as delicious as he remembered it. Lisa sheepishly tries to convince herself that he is still the same Richard, despite the fact that he has grown up. She tells him with concern that he might catch a cold and asks him to eat and rest. Richard, wrapped in a blanket, finds it hard to believe that his growing up hasn't changed their relationship. He says with nostalgia that the taste of the soup brings back pleasant memories. He reminds her of how she lent him a blanket to keep him warm, and that moment remains etched in his memory. Lisa is surprised that he still remembers it after so much time has passed. She apologizes for disappearing suddenly back then, her voice shaking with remorse. Richard admits that he was shocked when he returned from the academy and did not find her. He says he was lonely and felt lost, but she was the only one who supported him. What he dreaded most was the thought of never seeing her again, and that was what drove him to act. Now that she is safe, it is enough for him just to know it, and his words are full of tenderness. He asks for another helping of soup, and Lisa happily agrees, but he asks her to just sit still. Lisa has mixed feelings, not knowing how to react to his mature concern. She left the palace never to see him again, but fate decreed otherwise. Suddenly, she notices a dark figure outside the window, and her heart stops with fear. Her brother, Kenrick, appears before her, his words sounding like a threat. He asks with a venomous grin, why doesn't she talk to her brother? Lisa is horrified and cannot understand what he is doing here, and she is overcome with panic. She retreats in fear, ordering him not to touch her. Kenrick greets her mockingly, his words full of hidden meaning. He says it wasn't easy for him to find her, and his gaze pierces her right through. Lisa realizes with horror that he didn't just come to visit her, and her worst fears begin to come true. Lisa is horrified to realize that Kenrick will stop at nothing to carry out his plans. He asks with a grin if she is close to the second prince of Marahulk, and his words sound like a threat. Kenrick says he saw it inside and tells her not to play dumb. He admits that he was furious when he learned that she had left the palace. With a satisfied smile, he says that she has nevertheless carried out his order, and now he will listen to her report. Lisa despairs as to why she cannot free herself from her past. No matter how hard she tries, he grabs her by the throat, demanding that she tell him everything she knows about the second prince. Kenrick reminds her that he saved her life, and now she must prove it was worth it. Suddenly, there is an angry shout, and Richard orders her to be released. He lunges at Kenrick with his sword, and Kenrick dodges the blow in surprise. Lisa looks at this scene in horror, unable to believe what is happening. Richard stands in front of her, protecting her from her brother, his expression full of determination. He demands Kenrick's name with cold fury, and his voice does not bode well. Kenrick mockingly asks if he wants to be punished for raising his hand to his Lisa. He says that he has had enough reports for today and is about to leave. Kenrick threatens to give Richard another chance if he waits patiently. He disappears as quickly as he appeared, leaving Lisa and Richard in tense silence. Richard realizes that he will have to immediately send a carrier pigeon to report what has happened. He looks at Lisa with concern, realizing how scared she must be. Lisa panics and realizes that now that her brother knows where she is, she needs to leave as soon as possible. Richard looks at Lisa with concern, not understanding where she should run and what to do next. Lisa loses consciousness from the shock she experienced, and Richard barely manages to catch her. In her dream, she sees her brother again, who throws her food on the floor and says that in her condition, she can do nothing good. He cruelly reminds her that by going against him, she deserves punishment. Kenrick orders her to eat what he trampled, calling it a fitting meal for such a pathetic girl. Lisa understands that she should not contradict her brother and should do exactly what he says. Suddenly, she hears Richard's voice, which reminds her of her own words about not eating anything. He asks with pain in his voice why she continues to do things that will harm her. Lisa wakes up in her bed, not understanding what happened. She sits up with difficulty, realizing that she has fainted and her head is splitting. Suddenly, she notices Richard sleeping by her bed, and her heart skips a beat. He's been here all this time, and his hand holds her tightly, even in his sleep. She looks at him tenderly, knowing that she needs to make breakfast because he will be hungry when he wakes up. Lisa can't understand why she had such a strange dream, and she is overcome with mixed feelings. She realizes that when he wakes up, she will have to tell him to leave, and she will have to leave too. She doesn't know how to tell him about this, and her heart is breaking with pain. Suddenly, Richard hugs her from behind and asks where she is going to disappear to this time. She tries to break free in a panic, saying that the soup is about to boil, but he won't let go. Lisa hastily removes the pan from the heat, realizing that she has kept it on the fire for too long. Richard says with a grin that he will go and sit over there, and she is not obliged to entertain him. Richard asks, with pain in his voice, if she is going to disappear again. Lisa prepares him breakfast, simmering sea bream over low heat until it is tender and golden brown. She tops it with a sweet and tangy honey raspberry sauce, creating an incredible flavor combination. She serves yesterday's pumpkin soup and baguette French toast as a side dish. Richard looks at the breakfast with admiration, saying that it looks delicious and it's time to try it. Golden brown toast, soft inside like pudding, combined with honey and raspberries, whets the appetite. He says excitedly that he could eat it forever, and Lisa is glad that he likes it. She is relieved to finally see him, but this joy is a little late. Richard admits that he was worried, concerned that she would be in danger again, and he would not be able to see her. He says that he understands why she left the imperial palace, and his gaze becomes serious. He remembers the unpleasant aura of the guy who touched her yesterday, and immediately understands everything. Richard admits that he is worried and afraid to leave her here alone, defenseless. He gently takes her hand, saying that he wants her to be happy. He asks her to let him protect her, and his words are full of sincerity and determination. Lisa thinks anxiously that she doesn't want to be in danger, but with him, she won't have to face terrible things. He says passionately that he wants to eat her food forever, and his words sound like a confession. Suddenly, Marika bursts into the room, and her appearance interrupts their conversation. She looks at Richard in surprise, and then at Lisa. Not understanding what is happening, she hugs Lisa tightly, asking with tears in her eyes where she has been all this time. Marika reproachfully says that she simply disappeared without sending a single letter and demands an explanation. Marika demands an explanation, and her gaze is full of concern for her friend. She jealously asks why Lisa showed up with the second prince, and Richard looks away in embarrassment. Lisa tries to explain that she can't tell everything yet, but Marika doesn't calm down. Richard interrupts their conversation, saying that they have to go because it's already late. Liza promises to visit Marika during the day, and she reluctantly agrees, but her anxiety does not subside. Marika looks after them suspiciously, not understanding why Lisa is in such a hurry. She remembers that Lisa called the second prince Richard, and this seems too suspicious to her. This scene seems too risky to her, and she cannot shake off her bad feelings. Richard offers to carry her bag, but she refuses, saying that she can handle it herself. Eventually, he convinces her, and she agrees with a heavy sigh. Lisa despairs and thinks she doesn't want to live in fear every day, not knowing when Kenric will appear again. She decides to hide the fact that she is the Princess of Genogarth for now and find a way to survive. She asks Richard where they are going, and he replies that they are going to where she will be living. They come to a small cozy house, and Lisa looks at it in surprise. Richard invites her in, and she crosses the threshold with trepidation. She thought that one room used by the servants would be more than enough. Richard has prepared something special for her, and she looks at him in surprise. She is amazed to see the luxurious bedroom, and her heart skips a beat. He asks her with a smile if she likes it, and she can't say a word. Richard says he prepared this so that she would be comfortable, and she wouldn't have to worry about anything. Lisa says that she will stay at Marika's tonight, and Richard looks at her in surprise. He doesn't understand why she wants to leave, because this room is now hers, and it's better for her to stay here. She explains that it matters because he is a prince, and she is just a former servant. Lisa tries to leave, saying that she is grateful to him, but does not intend to live off his charity. She bids him goodnight and leaves, leaving him alone in the luxurious room. The next morning, Lilith finds Richard gloomy and asks why he is not in the mood. He replies with irritation that he will not go to the morning council and does not want to do anything. Lilith playfully hits him on the head, and he yells at her indignantly. She reproachfully says that he behaves like a child and asks when he will grow up. Richard looks longingly at his untouched breakfast and realizes that everything is obvious. He admits that the breakfast tasted terrible, and he couldn't eat it. Lilith angrily orders him to just shut up and eat, otherwise the kitchen staff will hate him. Richard says with disdain that none of this compares to Lisa's cooking, and he will not eat it. He repeats Lisa's name several times and Lilith looks at him suspiciously. Suddenly, she asks in surprise if Lisa is back, her voice trembling with excitement. Richard thinks bitterly that it's all over, and Lisa doesn't like it here. He tries to justify himself by saying that he did it because he was worried about her and wanted to be with her. Lilith curiously asks where Lisa is now, and he replies that she is probably in the kitchen. She understands what is going on and says that she now has a rough idea of the situation. Lilith takes Richard's breakfast with a grin, saying that she can do with it whatever she wants since he's not going to eat it anyway. Lilith says with a grin that she can't stand to see Richard in this state anymore and is about to force some food into him. She returns triumphantly with breakfast, but Richard looks at her with bewilderment. Marika convinces Lisa that there is no reason not to come and say hello to old friends. She slyly says that Lisa is interested in how everyone is doing in the kitchen. Lisa replies doubtfully that she is not sure whether she will be welcome, but her curiosity gets the better of her. The maids in the kitchen are anxiously discussing whether His Highness will like their cooking. They recall with horror that the prince never tries more than 3 bites of whatever is served to him. Lisa is surprised to realize that this is the biggest headache for the chef serving the prince. She realizes that they are talking about her older brother Richard, who has always seemed like a difficult person to her. She recalls with surprise that the second prince ate normally in his youth and does not understand why he became so picky. Suddenly, Marika pronounces his full name, the second prince, His Highness Maximilian. All cooks know that whatever they cook, he doesn't like it, and he quickly loses interest in the food. Lisa thinks bitterly that Richard hates food, and she can't even imagine it. Suddenly, she notices Trudy, and her heart sinks with a bad feeling. Trudy says with disdain that she doesn't remember letting her into her kitchen again. She mockingly asks if Lisa thinks she will be taken back after she ran away. Lisa tries to justify herself by saying that she just wanted to say hello, but Trudy doesn't listen. She angrily screams that she doesn't belong here and orders her to get out. Suddenly, there is a noise, and Trudy turns around in irritation to see what is going on. The chef's appearance interrupts their quarrel, and she asks in surprise what Lisa is doing there. The chef interrupts the argument, saying that they have an important guest now, and there is no time for squabbles. She anxiously announces that Her Highness the Princess has arrived, and everyone freezes in anticipation. The appearance of Princess Lilith with a plate in her hands takes everyone by surprise, and her look does not bode well. She says with cold calm that everyone probably knows why she is here. Lilith reports that the second prince has once again refused his food, and this is the last straw. Everyone in the hall froze, realizing that if His Highness had left his food, then there was a problem with the preparation itself. The chef desperately begs for forgiveness, saying that they did everything possible to please His Highness. Lilith says with irritation that this cannot go on any longer, and she has made a decision. She announces that she has decided to choose an exclusive chef for the second prince, and everyone is shocked. She explains that it would be nice to have someone you can completely trust in this matter. The condition is the same as always. All you have to do is try to please the second prince. Anyone who can fulfill this condition can take part in the competition. She says they will gather here again in a week and hopes many will attend. Lilith demands that he bring her results that will satisfy the second prince, and her words sound like an order. The maids hesitate to participate, not being confident in their abilities. They remember that the prince even sent back what Lisa had prepared today, and it seems hopeless to them. Trudy confidently declares that there is only one person here who has a chance. She says with a grin that there is no point in wasting time, and that it is better to just abandon this idea. Lisa looks at Marika with bewilderment, not understanding why Trudy is so self-confident. Suddenly, Trudy notices Lisa and asks in surprise what she is still doing here. Trudy looks at Lisa in bewilderment, not understanding what she is up to. She says with disdain that even if Lisa wins, it will not erase her past escape from the palace. Lisa sadly thinks that Richard is not as cold-blooded and heartless as he is described. She asks Trudy defiantly if she really thinks His Highness is that kind of person. Lisa suggests settling the matter by seeing who can prepare a dish that His Highness will like. She makes a condition that if Trudy loses, she will have to take back her words. Trudy accepts the challenge in a rage, not believing that Lisa can defeat her. Richard is surprised to learn that Lilith has assigned him an exclusive chef. He angrily demands that everything be cancelled immediately, saying that he doesn't need it. He admits that Lisa was in the kitchen, but he doesn't understand why they had to make such a fuss, Lilith asks with a grin if Lisa is participating in this competition, and Richard freezes. He is worried about Lisa becoming his exclusive chef. He rushes off to meet Lisa right now, but Lilith stops him. She warns him that if the judges see them together, it will put Lisa in an awkward position. He bitterly realizes that he will not be able to see Lisa until the day of the competition. He remembers that they haven't spoken since that day, and he becomes worried. Suddenly, a brilliant idea comes to his mind about how to see Lisa in person. He decides to use his familiar, Till, to convey a message to her. Lisa strokes Till tenderly, asking how he is doing, and the bird hands her a flower. It's been a week since she returned to the palace, and now she's participating in the selection competition. Lisa wipes the sweat from her forehead with relief, happy that the dough turned out just right. She rolls out the dough with determination, telling herself it's time to show what she's made of. She remembers Trudy's words about Richard being a cold-blooded and heartless man, and this makes her angry. Lisa doesn't understand why she was so angry about her words, because it's not like her at all. Suddenly, Till, Richard's familiar, appears and asks her with concern if she's sad. Lisa takes him in her arms with a smile, apologizing for keeping him waiting. She feeds him a seed, feeling a little guilty that they broke up so suddenly. She hasn't been able to see Richard for almost a week due to preparations for the competition, and this upsets her. Lisa decides that now is the best time to focus on preparing for the competition. She asks Till to pass on a message to Richard, hoping that they will meet soon. She kisses Till tenderly, thanking him for his help and counting on him. Marika suddenly appears, and Lisa looks at her in surprise. Till, frightened, flies away, and Lisa cannot hide her disappointment. She decides that she was going to send him back anyway, and she should get back to her preparations too. Lisa tells herself with determination that she will use every second to prepare the perfect dish for him. Marika interrupts her thoughts, asking how the preparations are going. She reminds him that the theme of this competition is cream sauce, and Lisa nods confidently. That day, the princess gave them the following instructions, and everyone listened to her attentively. She explained that the second prince never took more than 3 bites from any dish. Lilith added that he loves dishes like steamed potatoes or boiled chicken breast. The princess explains that Richard actually likes dishes with cream, which gives her an idea. Lisa realizes that she must prepare something that meets these conditions in order to win. Suddenly, Caden appears, and his enthusiastic look takes Lisa by surprise. He is looking forward to what she will cook this time and dreams of trying her dish. Lisa smiles shyly, not understanding why she is called a legendary chef. Marika explains that this is one of the most discussed topics in the palace, and Lisa is shocked. She doesn't understand why they call her that, because she's just an ordinary cook. Marika reminds her of Kestel's banquet a few years ago, where she made eggplant lasagna. After her disappearance, rumors began to circulate in the kitchen about a legendary chef who had prepared a dish never seen before. Marika says with a grin that people just love a good drama, and Lisa can't argue with that. She understands that the competition will be a duel between her and Trudy, the sous chef of the Imperial Palace. Lisa panics as she realizes how things have turned out and can't believe what's happening. She never thought that there would still be people in the palace who remembered her, but if the expectations are so high, she wants to try even harder to live up to them. Kadan and Marika are eagerly awaiting the start, but are asked to disperse. Lisa is left alone, and Marika leaves with regret, without knowing what she will cook. She is looking forward to this moment and finally feels some peace and quiet. Marika suggests that she take a walk to clear her head before the competition. She drags Lisa outside, saying that she was constantly locked up, preparing for the competition. Lisa looks with curiosity at the changed palace landscape and wonders what Richard is doing now. Richard reproachfully notes that his opponent is resisting even less today than usual. Urich panics and asks the captain for forgiveness, but he orders him to stand up and raise his sword. Lisa looks at the grown-up Richard in surprise, not recognizing him as the boy she knew. She understands that nothing has changed in the years she spent away from him. Richard tells her with cold fury that whining won't help you survive on the battlefield, and he seems so unfamiliar to her. He orders Urich to immediately raise his sword, and he obeys in fear. Richard notices Lisa and Marika, and his face softens for a moment. He announces that the training is over for now, and they will take a break in half an hour. Urich apologizes for what happened and asks if they were hurt. Richard runs his hand through his hair in embarrassment, not expecting Lisa to appear so suddenly. He is afraid that she will start to be afraid of him after what she saw, because she looked completely stunned. He despairs at the thought that this might become a problem, and panic sets in. Lisa touches his cheek tenderly, and he looks at her in surprise. She asks him with a smile if he minds if she sits next to him for a minute. It had been almost a week since they had last seen each other, and she was glad to see him. She says with a smile that she is preparing hard for the competition, and he sighs with relief. Lisa regretfully admits that she realized how carefully he had prepared everything for her, and she is ashamed that she refused him. He panics and tries to calm her down, saying that he was worried that he was acting too despotic. He admits that it was his fault, and he acted selfishly, but he didn't want her to feel that way. Lisa says with a smile that she is going to do her best in this competition. Lisa says with determination that she will prepare a dish that Richard will like, and will do everything to stay in the imperial palace. She asks him to look forward to this moment, and her words are full of confidence. Richard reminds her with a grin that he promised Lilith an anonymous and fair judgment, but Lisa believes him. He notes with surprise that, seeing her like this in the palace, she looked very tense. Lisa recalls that the Richard who was before seemed serious to her and very involved in his work. He tries to justify himself by saying that it is a misunderstanding and that he is not usually like this. Lisa asks curiously if there was any other reason for his behavior. He sheepishly says that the break is almost over and he has to go, avoiding the question. Richard wishes her luck in her preparations and leaves, leaving Lisa at a loss. She regrets that they weren't able to talk longer, but she's glad she was able to say what she wanted. Some time ago, in his room, Richard proudly says that he really is a genius. He looks fondly at his familiar, Till, remembering that when he was little, he didn't have the strength to bond with him. Now that he had created it with his own magic, it became like a part of him. He thinks of Lisa with a smile, knowing she will be here, and he wonders what his affection means to her. He kisses Till tenderly, knowing he shouldn't be too upset about not being able to see her. Richard thinks bitterly that he will never be able to tell her that it was he who sent Thiel. Marika asks Lisa in surprise why she suddenly started staring at the sky. She reproachfully says that she disappeared somewhere all day, leaving her completely alone. Lisa apologizes with a smile, realizing that she made her friend wait too long. She looks at Marika with warmth, realizing how many secrets she kept from her best friend. Lisa is relieved to think that the dough turned out just right. She rolls out the dough with determination, telling herself it's time to show what she's made of. She remembers Trudy's words about Richard being a cold-blooded and heartless man, and this makes her angry. Lisa doesn't understand why she was so angry about her words, because it's not like her at all. Suddenly, Till, Richard's familiar, appears and asks her with concern if she is sad. Lisa takes him in her arms with a smile, apologizing for keeping him waiting. She feeds him a seed, feeling a little guilty that they broke up so suddenly. She hasn't been able to see Richard for almost a week due to preparations for the competition, and this upsets her. Lisa decides that now is the best time to focus on preparing for the competition. She asks Teal to pass on a message to Richard, hoping that they will meet soon. She kisses Till tenderly, thanking him for his help and counting on him. Marika suddenly appears, and Lisa looks at her in surprise. Till, frightened, flies away, and Lisa cannot hide her disappointment. She decides that she was going to send him back anyway, and she should get back to her preparations too. Lisa tells herself with determination that she will use every second to prepare the perfect dish for him. Marika interrupts her thoughts, asking how the preparations are going. She reminds him that the theme of this competition is cream sauce, and Lisa nods confidently. That day, the princess gave them the following instructions, and everyone listened to her attentively. She explained that the second prince never took more than 3 bites from any dish. Lilith added that he loves dishes like steamed potatoes or boiled chicken breast. Marika and Caden discussed that the judging will be completely anonymous to ensure a fair assessment. They understand that His Highness will not see the cooking process, but will only appreciate the result. Marika says with admiration that this is pure craftsmanship, worthy of Marihalka's reputation. Caden confidently declares that he believes Lisa will win, and Marika agrees with him. Lisa looks forward with determination, knowing she must do something amazing. The princess announces the start of the competition, and both participants freeze in anticipation. Richard thinks with indifference that he doesn't care who wins. His goal is to get an empty plate. Lilith thinks with irritation that her brother is a real master of creating problems. Suddenly, a stranger appears and reproachfully says that she wanted to choose a candidate without consulting him. Lilith is surprised to recognize him as Emil and does not understand what he is doing here. Marika and Caden are also confused, not knowing who this mysterious man is. It turns out that this is Mr. Emil Seuss, the chief chamberlain, who has the greatest power in the palace after the princess and the princes. He announces that from now on, he will be running this competition. Lilith angrily says that it was within her competence, and he deliberately organized everything while she was on a business trip. She thinks with irritation that she thought everything was going too smoothly. And this is what happened. Emil says with cold calm that preparing a dish for the second prince is a responsible matter, so he will not stop the competition. He states that he will take part in judging, because cooking for His Highness is a huge responsibility. Lilith can hardly contain her anger, realizing that this is a necessary procedure. Emil mockingly asks Richard if he will allow him to take part, and he reluctantly agrees. After a slight delay, they begin the competition, and the tension in the room reaches its peak. The chef announces the start of the competition, and both participants freeze in anticipation. Lisa is surprised to realize that there are now 2 judges and tries to calm down. She unwraps the bag of ingredients, and everyone looks curiously at what she will cook today. The maids whisper that this time she is preparing something very exquisite. She plans to make creamy pasta, but she'll make the noodles from scratch, which surprises everyone. Marika explains that Lisa has practiced dozens of times and even made special flour for this. Caden and Marika are eagerly awaiting the result, but they are worried that Lisa hasn't started cooking yet. Marika notices that something is wrong and becomes worried. Lisa realizes with horror that she no longer has the flour she needs to make fresh pasta. Caden asks Marika what's going on, and she anxiously confirms that Lisa is making fresh pasta. Lisa despairs and thinks that it won't work because it takes a lot of time to prepare. To make fresh pasta, she needs a special flour, and she can't find it. She remembers that she specifically found the ingredients for today's competition and doesn't understand why they disappeared. Suddenly, she notices that Trudy is also making the dough from scratch, and she becomes suspicious. Trudy triumphantly displays the fresh pasta, and Lisa realizes that she stole her idea and the flour. She remembers seeing Trudy in the kitchen yesterday, and everything falls into place. Emil asks irritably what's wrong, and Richard looks at him with displeasure. He tells His Highness that he should judge only by the dishes and not worry about anything. Richard looks anxiously towards the kitchen, not seeing Lisa, and is overcome with anxiety. He is looking forward to seeing what dish she will prepare for him this time. Richard looks anxiously at the pink-haired participant, who still doesn't seem to have started cooking. Emil points out with cool calm that careful preparation is also part of the cooking process. He thinks with regret that she might not even be able to start this competition. Emil announces that any cooking from now on will be considered a violation and asks that the dishes be covered. He looks at Lisa curiously, wondering if she managed to finish her dish. Spectators whisper that Trudy made fresh pasta, and Lisa started cooking a little later. Emil announces that they are starting the judging, and the most important thing is which dish the second prince will like. He asks His Highness to begin the assessment, and everyone freezes in anticipation. Richard says with anticipation that he will be glad to see what dishes have been prepared. He hopes that these dishes will not be like others, and his words are full of hope. He decides to try the first dish, and everyone watches his hand with bated breath. Under the lid is a creamy, shellfish-filled pasta that looks impressive. The main ingredient is shellfish mixed with a little pancetta in a sauce that combines the flavors of the meat with hints of the ocean. Richard is surprised to find that the texture of the noodles is different from what he usually eats. Emil confirms that the noodles are soft and have a pleasant texture, and his words sound like a compliment. He remembers that the dish was prepared by a girl with brown hair, and his gaze falls on Trudy. He admires the fact that she made the noodles from scratch to achieve that special texture. Emil and Richard move on to the next course, and the tension in the room increases. Lisa looks at them with alarm, realizing that, unlike her rival, she lacks both the ingredients and the composure. Richard looks at the second course in surprise, and his reaction is unpredictable. Caden looks at the dish in confusion, not understanding what it is. Lilith asks the chef with irritation if she is the only one who thinks it looks weird. Richard looks at the worm-like dish in surprise and cannot understand what it is. It has a round, smooth surface, but it looks so wrinkled and unattractive. Emil struggles to find the words, saying that it looks exactly like, but he is interrupted. Richard lifts his fork to his mouth hesitantly, thinking it shouldn't taste terrible. Emil asks with concern how he is doing, and suggests not to force himself if he doesn't like it. Richard tries the dish with surprise, and his reaction is unpredictable. He raves that it's damn delicious and his face lights up. He jokingly tries to feed Emil, saying that he shouldn't try it, but Emil dodges. The crust is so crispy, and the inside is surprisingly soft, with a chewy texture similar to mochi. Emil admits with surprise that he has never encountered such a texture before. Richard says with a smile that this dish is completely unusual, and he likes it. He recalls that the condition of the competition was to prepare a dish that His Highness would truly like. He asks with determination who the chef is who prepared this, his gaze full of interest. Lisa confesses with trepidation that it was she who prepared this dish, and all eyes turn to her. Richard asks her to tell him about her creation, and she begins to explain with excitement. She says the dish is called gnocchi, and she mashed the boiled potatoes with an egg, salt, pepper, and flour. She rolled it into small pieces and boiled them until they floated to the top, creating a unique shape. She then lightly pan-fried them to enhance the flavor and texture, and finished with a creamy sauce. Richard says with admiration that it is gratifying to know that behind every ingredient and delicacy there is a special idea. Lisa breathes a sigh of relief, glad that her improvisation was successful, despite the loss of flour. She recalls how, fortunately, she had taken more potatoes as a side dish, and this saved her. Richard says her name with a smile, and his voice sounds tender. He announces that her cooking has deeply impressed him, and he appoints her as his personal chef. Lisa smiles happily, realizing that her sincere efforts have finally reached him. Marika and Caden are overjoyed at her victory, knowing she deserves it. Lilith enviously says that she also wants to try Lisa's dish, and the chef promises her such an opportunity. Richard looks at Lisa tenderly, saying that now she won't go anywhere, since she is his personal chef. He asks Emil when she will officially take up her duties. Emil explains that the personal chef's duties include preparing meals for His Highness whenever he requires food. Richard invites her to cook him dinner today, and she happily agrees. He asks her to come to his office before sunset, and she eagerly awaits this meeting. Richard, with a mysterious smile, says that he wants to show her something, and her heart skips a beat in anticipation. She is alarmed to think that he might have entertained a false hope, and she is overcome with doubts. She tries to convince herself that he only called her because she is now his personal chef. Emil asks with a grin if she is happy because the prince praised her, and his words sound like a mockery. Lisa meets Trudy on the stairs, who says with cool politeness that she must be relieved. Lisa realizes that Trudy still hates her and is jealous of her success, and that things haven't gotten any better over time. Lisa remembers how Trudy once copied her recipes and realizes that nothing has changed. She tells Trudy straight out that she knows about her dislike, and there is a cold steel in her voice. Lisa is angrily demanding that her efforts not be belittled, and her patience is running out. Trudy furiously admits that she hates it when Lisa always grins like an idiot. She screams that she is sick of the way everyone treats Lisa like a queen. Lisa realizes that this is why she stole her flour, and everything falls into place. She reminds Trudy of their meeting in the kitchen the day before the competition, and she can't deny it. Trudy mockingly asks if that's the only reason Lisa thinks she's a thief, and her words are full of venom. Lisa explains that the power of fresh pasta lies in its soft, springy texture, which absorbs sauce better than regular noodles. She says that's why you need to be especially careful with seasonings when using fresh pasta. Lisa adds that salt increases appetite, and she deliberately made the sauce richer. Lisa declares that she will no longer forgive such cowardly behavior and will not remain silent next time. Trudy looks at Lisa with hatred, realizing that she will always get in her way. Lisa breathes a sigh of relief, glad that this terrible conversation is finally over. She is worried that they will have to work together further, and perhaps she has said too much. She reminds herself that she must survive in this harsh imperial palace, no matter the cost. Suddenly, she hears Richard's voice asking what she is doing here, and her heart skips a beat. He says sheepishly that he was waiting for her, and his cheeks flush. Lisa apologizes sheepishly for keeping Richard waiting, her cheeks flushing. He says with a smile that he just wanted to see her as soon as possible and suggests that they go to his office. Richard takes her hand and they walk down the corridor, leaving all their worries behind. Lisa is surprised to realize that the confusion in her head has disappeared and her soul is at peace. She looks at Richard in surprise, not understanding since when she began to feel safe when she saw him. Suddenly, she realizes she is in his office, and her heart skips a beat with anticipation. He shows her the new uniform, and she is delighted to realize that it suits her very well. Richard says he wanted to give her a uniform that would fit her perfectly, since she would continue to cook for him. He announces with a smile that from now on, she will be his personal chef and looks forward to her starting to cook. Lisa promises with determination to do everything in her power, and her eyes sparkle with happiness. He says Trudy suddenly appears, and her angry look does not bode well. She looks at Lisa with disdain, and her expression says it all. Lucian suddenly appears, and with a venomous grin offers to chat a little. Lilith enthusiastically embraces Lisa, congratulating her on her victory and rejoicing at her return. She reproachfully says that she missed her, and cannot believe that a cook like her no longer cooks. Richard invites her to take a look at the new kitchen where she will be working from now on. He proudly shows her the kitchen, where all the utensils are of the highest quality, and no chef in the world would refuse such a place. He admits that he suffered greatly trying to force down the palace food and practically did not eat. Richard, with a gentle smile, asks Lisa to cook him more delicious food and counts on her. Lisa sheepishly tries to defuse the situation by offering to cook something for both of them first. She says happily that she would love to cook something for both of them. Her eyes shining, she begins cooking by whisking eggs in a bowl and lightly salting them. Lisa pours the beaten eggs into a small frying pan, distributing them evenly over the surface. She quickly stirs them over low heat, shapes them, and carefully transfers them to a plate. Today, there is an omelet on the menu, and its appetizing appearance impresses everyone. Lilith and Richard look at the dish with delight, saying that it looks like a fluffy bun and is incredibly soft. The rich flavor of the eggs melts on the tongue, and the airy, fiery texture makes them even more tender. Richard can't believe that eggs can be so tender, and his surprise is genuine. He raves that it's amazing and very tasty, and Lisa is glad he liked it. He confesses with a tender smile that he truly loves her, and her heart skips a beat. Lisa panics and tries to turn everything into a joke, saying that he likes her cooking. She decides to go out for some fresh air to hide her embarrassment and get her thoughts in order. She is worried that Richard is saying things that could be misunderstood, and now she is at a loss. Lisa is genuinely happy that he likes her food, and that they can spend time together again. She can't be truly happy as long as she hides from him the fact that she is the princess of Gennegarth. She bitterly thinks that perhaps it was a mistake to come to the imperial palace to escape from her brother. If the truth ever came out, it would disappoint Richard and destroy what they had. Lilith reproachfully asks what it was and whether it scared her to death, but Richard orders her to shut up. Lilith reproachfully tells Richard that he shouldn't show so obviously how much he likes Lisa. Lilith says that she will go and say goodbye to Lisa for him, leaving him alone with his thoughts. Richard wonders with annoyance why he is always so clumsy when it comes to Lisa. He remembers how glad he was to see her again, but he could not hide his excitement. He doesn't know if he should continue to pretend he doesn't know about her secret, since she is the princess of Gennegarth. Several years ago, in the Marahawk Empire, his father summoned him to deliver important news. He graduated from the academy with honors, and his father was impressed by his achievements. The emperor admits that he has exceeded his expectations and will indeed be of use. Richard thought he had been waiting for this moment his whole life, the moment when his father would acknowledge his existence. But the reason he felt so empty was because he realized something important. He realized that she was not in this palace, and he thought with longing where she was now. It reminds him of the kingdom of Gennegarth, which raised the flag of rebellion against Marahawk many years ago. He says they had a lead a few years ago, but it slipped through their fingers. The emperor tasks him with tracking down members of the Gennegarth royal family, and Richard accepts the task with determination. He learns that the prince's name is Kenric Gesendar, and the name seems familiar to him, and the princess is Alina Gesendar, and this name echoes with pain in his heart. He remembers the name that is so familiar, but which he was so afraid would disappear. At that, Richard tenderly says that no matter who she really is, He vowed to be the one who could protect her. Lisa breathes a sigh of relief, glad that she enjoys organizing the kitchen so much. She happily creates a daily menu, realizing that the fact that Richard eats her cooking gives her great pleasure. Lisa smiles as she thinks about what to cook today, her eyes shining with inspiration. Suddenly, the chief chamberlain appears, and Lisa asks in surprise how she can help him. Emil introduces himself with cold calm and says that his duty is to look after the state of the palace. He asks to interrupt her for a moment, and she politely invites him to come in. Lisa looks at him suspiciously, feeling that he is a very meticulous person, and his eyes examine every corner. She thinks with a smile that she has done nothing wrong, but her heart is still pounding. Emil addresses her by name, and she looks at him with concern. He asks if she has anything to do other than cook for His Highness, and she shakes her head. He says that Richard wants her to help prepare a banquet for Kestel. Lisa recalls that Richard had already come once, and his visit was connected with some kind of agreement. She is surprised to learn that it was thanks to the competition she won that Richard was able to enter the academy. Richard asks her what she wants to do, and she happily agrees to help. She says that since she is his personal chef, she needs his permission, and he gives his consent with a smile. He tenderly says that his only wish is for her to live happily in the palace. Richard adds that he has one condition, and she looks at him in surprise. He shyly asks her not to forget to let him try her dish too, and his cheeks flush. Lisa promises with a smile, and they both look forward to this moment. Richard sighs with relief, glad that he didn't say anything strange, and that Lisa smiled so tenderly. He tells himself with determination that he wants Lisa to have even more reasons to smile. Suddenly, Lucian appears and asks with a venomous grin if something good happened. He notes with disdain that Richard looks extremely pleased, and his words are full of venom. Richard asks in surprise what he is doing here, his voice sounding tense. Lucian mockingly says that he went out because he heard voices, and his gaze falls on Lisa. He asks mockingly why Richard is trying so hard to hide her, and his words sound like a challenge. Lucian recognizes Lisa as the same girl who threw a peach at him many years ago. He says happily that he is glad that they were able to meet again, and his words are full of hidden threat. Richard angrily orders him to fuck off, and his patience is running out. Lucian warns him with a grin to be careful, and his words sound like a warning. He mockingly says that if Richard values something too much, he will simply want to steal it. Richard looks at Lisa with concern, not knowing if his brother has frightened her. He hugs her tenderly, telling her that she should have been more careful and not let him get close to danger. He asks her not to worry about Lucian, saying that she has nothing to fear. Richard hugs her tightly, and she feels a sense of trust emanating from him that cannot be expressed in words. She gratefully thanks him and trusts him, and their hearts beat in unison. Lilith says with admiration that Lisa is a real master of baking sweets. She enviously thinks that Richard is a lucky man, because he can eat such delicious things every single day. Lisa says with a smile that she is actually even glad, and her words are full of sincerity. Lisa says with a smile that she is just interested in how Richard spends his time in the palace. She had heard that he had graduated from the academy early, but she could not imagine that he had grown so much. Lilith remarks with a smile that Lisa hasn't been to the palace for a long time, so she's not aware of all the news. She says that Richard has made quite a name for himself, and not just because he graduated from the academy. He took upon himself the duty of destroying the remnants of the rebel armies and made a great impression on His Majesty. That is why she decided to entrust him with a more responsible position, for example, captain of the Blue Lion Knights. Lisa thinks with alarm that if the hunt is not cancelled, then they cannot give even a chance for rebellion. Lilith says with confidence that Richard will definitely find them, and her words sound like a promise. Lisa thanks Emil for the opportunity, her voice low. She clarifies that the ambassador is a vegetarian, but consumes dairy products, and Emil confirms this. Lisa remembers how Richard promised to protect her, but she cannot rely on him for everything. She realizes she must find a way to survive on her own, and her resolve grows stronger. She turns to the Grand Chamberlain, asking if the ambassador's taste has changed over the past few years. Emil unfolds a huge scroll, and Lisa looks at it in surprise. She says with a smile that she would like to offer him something, and her eyes shine. She prepared a selection of vegetable recipes and hoped that they could discuss the holiday menu together. Emil says with cold calm that he appreciates her zeal, but there is no need for it. He says they have only one specific request, and his words sound like an order. He says it's the same eggplant lasagna she used to make. Lisa is surprised to realize that all she has to do is simply prepare this dish, and everything falls into place. Lisa doubtfully thinks that perhaps the ambassador is expecting something more than a simple dish. She suggests he might have meant the vegetarian menu in general, not just the eggplant lasagna. Given his dietary restrictions, it's unlikely he enjoyed truly fine dining very often. Lisa says she understands Emil's concerns, but they still have time to put a little more effort into preparation. For her as a chef, this is a matter of professional pride and self-realization. Emil looks at her with interest, realizing that if they manage to exceed his expectations, it will help steer the negotiations in the right direction. He clarifies that he is no longer Ambassador Castola, but has been promoted to Prime Minister. Emil regretfully admits that he was too short-sighted and missed the most important aspect. He says he forgot how much pleasure and happiness a simple meal can bring. He thanks Lisa for the reminder, and his gaze warms. She tries to explain that Marhalk's culinary culture is quite simple in nature. Lisa says with a smile that the main course will be dessert, and Emil looks at her in surprise. Lilith clutches her head in despair, not understanding how she will sort out all these papers. She complains about Lucian, who always tucks his tail between his legs and runs away when it comes to real work. Lilith notices with irritation that lately Richard hates him even more than usual. Richard asks her in surprise how she guessed, and she answers with a smile that she simply assumed. He admits that he encountered it some time ago when he was with Lisa, and his voice sounds worried. He's afraid that Lucian might try to harm her, and that really worries him. Lilith warns him to be careful, as Lucian is already watching his every move. She advises him not to let his guard down, and her words sound like a serious warning. Lisa brings the treats with a smile, and Richard looks at her in surprise. She explains that Her Highness asked her to come, and she did not interfere. Lisa notices with surprise that just now he was gloomy as a cloud, but now he is shining. Lilith says thoughtfully that Lucian has been acting strange lately. Emil announces that, as requested, he has appointed Liz Kruger as head chef for the upcoming banquet. Lucian asks with interest why he gave such an order, and Emil looks at him with concern. He explains that she is the winner of a recent competition, and he decided to give her another chance to show off her skills. Lucian lets him go, and Emil leaves with relief, wishing him good night. The prince thinks with a grin that everything is going exactly according to his plan, and something very interesting will happen soon.